wanted to watch this. The most famous killing in history. Julius Caesar. I'm kind of hungry though. I'm not gonna lie. I might have to get somebody to eat, chat. Let me go get somebody. I'll be right back. Alright guys, I'm back. This is my second meal of the day. It's soup, chicken, potatoes, spinach. It's 174, 217. Alright, let's put that into ChatGPT real quick.
It's the 15th.
Shut up. Yo, wait. Isn't this fucking... Oh, what do you call it? This has to be the same channel as... Oh, I forgot what the other dude's called. I ate egg McMuffin this morning, which is 310 calories and I think 17 grams of protein, 24 grams of protein. So 174 grams of chicken breast and 217 grams and 17 grams of a mix of broth and potatoes and spinach. Let's see what chat got to say about this. Thinking. Also, guys, this is how I log the shit that I be eating. Estimated meal, 287 calories, 57 grams of protein, and then 217 of broth and potato spinach mix. 10 calories, estimated meal, about 380 calories, 57 grams of protein. Alright, not bad. Not bad at all. Alright, guys. The most famous killing in history. Julius Caesar. Let's see.
Of March 44 BC in Rome. The most powerful man in the Roman Republic, the dictator Julius Caesar, walks through the doors of the Curia of Pompey, the temporary gathering point for the Roman Senate's meetings. The usual venue, the Roman Forum, a kilometre to the southeast, is undergoing renovations to build a new Senate house in Caesar's name, and is unavailable. The Curia, meaning meeting place in Latin, is located at the eastern point of a large open courtyard known as the Portico of Pompey. Compared to the Forum, it's rather secluded. It has no direct access to the side streets of Rome, and the only exits lead directly onto the portico. Today, this area is occupied by a large group of armed gladiators, who are loitering near the Curia entrance, trying to stay inconspicuous. Inside the Curia, senators are nervously milling about. They watch as Caesar takes a seat on his golden ceremonial chair at the front of the room. Caesar's right-hand man and closest ally, his co-consul Mark Antony, who had been with him before he entered, is nowhere to be seen. Unbeknownst to him, Antony is nearby, just outside, but he's being distracted by another senator. Caesar is alone. Across the room, a man rises from the benches and starts walking towards him.
Dude, bro, he killed him just like that? I thought he was like he snuck up behind him and stabbed him. I didn't know he was in front of like everybody. Holy shit.
But first, this video is sponsored by Odoo. This is a toga, by the way. I'm doing this in a toga. I'm committing to the bit. The all-in-one management software that provides entrepreneurs with more than 45 applications to simplify the day-to-day management of their business. I know it's not very historically accurate, but I deleted Twitter so no one can criticize me anymore. Today, I'm going to use Odoo's e-commerce app to create a web shop to sell wine from a fictitious Roman winery. I'm going to say I want an e-commerce store for my wine business, with the main objective being to sell more wine. Then I'll pick my color scheme and add pages and features. Now I just need to choose the layout and product page, and finally I'll pick the theme I think will attract the most customers. Now all I need to do is define the product I want to sell. I'll grab a picture of some wine and voila.
What the fuck is CHF?
I have an e-commerce store. Using Odoo's customization tools, I'll make a nice homepage to target Roman landholders with an attractive selling point. And now I just sit back and watch the sales flow in. Launch your e-commerce for free with Odoo's 1 app free offer, which includes unlimited hosting and support and a custom domain name for 1 year by clicking on my link in the description below or pinned comment. But that's all, let's get back into the assassination.
To understand Caesar's death, we have to understand how he got here. In the eyes of Rome's political elite, Caesar had grown too powerful. Over the course of an almost 40-year career, he reached Rome's highest public office, consul. He conquered all of modern-day France and Belgium and parts of Switzerland, Germany, and the Netherlands. By all accounts, he was a military genius and charismatic too.
Yeah.
His armies, comprised of Roman legions, became loyal to him and only him. His many victories with them made him fabulously wealthy. Finally, he had a habit of pandering to the masses, opposing unpopular policies and presenting himself as a man of the people. He became very popular. Perhaps too popular.
Crazy how when you do all the right things, you'll get murked. In every single timeline of history, if you do the right things, you get murked.
In 49 BC,
And you know why that is? Because the ego of others. Because if you're the most popular and you're the most powerful, they can't get their agenda, across. You can't, they're not able to achieve what they want to achieve.
during Caesar was becoming larger than Rome, the Senate, alongside his chief rival, Pompey the Great, moved against him. They attempted to recall him from his campaign in Gaul and strip him of his military command. A command which gave him legal immunity under Roman law. Sensing that his enemies wished to prosecute him and curb his power on his return to the city, Caesar made a fateful decision. With a legion of soldiers in tow, he crossed the Rubicon River in northern Italy. The river marked the border.
Oh, see? Alright. Hold on, guys. Let me be right back. Oh, Miracle came home. Hold up. Alright, I'm back.
border between the Roman heartland and its other provinces, and by Roman law, all returning generals had to disband their armies and lay down their arms before crossing it, as to avoid internal conflicts. By deliberately ignoring this, Caesar started a civil war, one that would last 4 years and span the entire Republic. In March of 45 BC,
You're telling me Caesar, being the genius that he is, he couldn't beat Pompey? Like, are we for real right now? Did Pompey have a bigger army or something?
he would win that civil war, having defeated Pompey the Great.
I always had faith in him. I always had faith in him.
The only man that could rival him in influence and wealth. This made him the undisputed most powerful man in Rome. The Senate, an institution that once sought to reduce his power and influence, elected him to the consulship a further 3 times. And finally, in February of 44 BC, granted him the title of dictator for life. For a time before the foundation of the Roman Republic, Rome had been ruled by kings. Tyrannical, cruel kings. When the last monarch, Tarquin the Proud, was overthrown around 509 BC, the Roman people, particularly the conservative aristocracy that would end up forming most of the Senate, vowed that no king should rule Rome again. It now seemed that Caesar fancied himself a king. He began wearing opulent royal garbs and constructing statues of himself in public. His allies called for extravagant celebrations in his honor and proposed and later succeeded in changing the month of Quintilis, the month he was born, to Julius.
Wait, is that why we have July? But also, so he was a good king? Was he actually a good king?
He installed in the Senate a golden chair designed specifically for him, the chair upon which he sits today.
Today?
Caesar had grown too powerful, and he was flaunting it. He threatened the continued existence of the Republic. If defeating him on the battlefield was impossible, his foes would have to find another way to bring him down. The men who conspired to kill Caesar, a group of about 60, are diverse in their backgrounds. A few are former allies who felt their loyalty to him.
You know also what I liked about back then too? Is that each country had their type of like apparel, you know? Like this is like Rome or whatever, you know, they had their what's it called? Their tunics? No, their what the fuck is these shit called? I don't know. They had their robes. And then you go to Egypt and I don't know what they had in Egypt, probably like nothing, probably like a leaf on their dick. And then you go to Japan and then they're dressed like samurais or some shit. Or in the Momonosuke's, I don't know what they're called.
Had not been sufficiently rewarded. Some are remnants of the Pompeian faction, the group that fought Caesar during the Civil War under Pompey the Great. A group he, perhaps foolishly, pardoned. A handful simply oppose his accumulation of power out of principle, fearing he would destroy the state's republican values. Most, however, are members of the conservative aristocracy, who profit greatly from Rome's republican form of government as they monopolize the Senate and thus oppose Caesar's centralization of power. These men had been meeting in secret for months to hatch a plan to kill him. They considered assassinating him in public on a street in Rome known as the Via Sacra. This was probably abandoned because the venue was too public. Any ally of Caesar's, if they were nearby, could simply intervene. Caesar had no bodyguards on payroll while in the city, but he was known to surround himself with some particularly intimidating friends to compensate. Another questionable idea was flinging him from a bridge and placing a number of armed men below it to ensure the fall would be fatal. They also considered striking while he was at a gladiator show, as they could hide the assassins in plain sight, posing as gladiators. Ultimately, though, a Senate session on the 15th of March was selected.
Bro, there's no way it was that hard back then to even get to him.
To be the best time to strike. Soon after this date, Caesar would be outside of the city on a military campaign to defeat the Dacians and the Parthian Empire to Rome's east, making it far more difficult for them to reach him and allowing him to accumulate even more glory, prestige, and power. Choosing a Senate meeting made sense, too. All those present were sure to be unarmed, as it was generally prohibited to bring weapons into the Senate House, making resistance unlikely. Most of the Senate were indeed loyal to Caesar, but even his closest allies would think twice to spring to his defense when faced with a blade. Additionally, in a closed Senate meeting, Caesar could be dealt with more subtly, away from the prying eyes and ears of the public and Caesar's informal protection. So, on the day of the 15th, daggers are secretly brought into the Curia of Pompey in wooden boxes usually used to carry writing tablets for record-keeping. Before Caesar's arrival, members of the conspiracy retrieve the blades and conceal them underneath their togas. Outside the building, the conspirators deploy a group of armed gladiators to cover the Curia's exits, ensuring that Caesar won't get far.
Dude, there's no way this many people hated him.
Should he try to escape.
I guess they probably got paid.
They are owned by the senator Decimus Brutus, a man that Caesar considers to be a close friend and ally, a man named second in his will, a man that Caesar trusts. Caesar would not question the presence of the
It be your own people, bro.
gladiators, knowing them to be Decimus's. Finally, when Caesar arrives with his co-consul Mark Antony, a senator by the name of Gaius Trebonius pulls him aside and begins to speak with him. Antony is a big, brawny man, and his loyalty to Caesar is without question. The conspiracy thought it wise to take him out of the equation and ensure he did not intervene in Caesar's defense.
They should have just murked them both, right?
Though the conspirators originally considered murdering the both of them together,
Yeah.
they thought the optics of killing Caesar alone would be better. It would appear like the just killing of a tyrant, and not an arbitrary massacre. The stage is now set. All that remains is for the signal to be given. That signal is Senator Tillius Cimber. As he marches towards the dictator, he exclaims loudly that Caesar should pardon his brother and return him from exile. Suddenly, dozens of other senators rise from their seats, and they too start approaching Caesar, shouting words of support for Cimber's request. The senators circle him like sharks in the water, growing ever closer, until Cimber thrusts out his fist and tears Caesar's toga down, revealing the tunic underneath. Startled, Caesar recoils and shouts. Moments later, the senator Publius Casca strikes the first blow from behind, with a dagger thrust that grazes Caesar's shoulder. He rises in shock, twirls around, and allegedly stabs Casca with a pen in retaliation.
Yo!
But alas, the pen is not mightier than the sword. In seconds, Caesar becomes enveloped by a shroud of togas and collapses under a hail of daggers. Two Caesar loyalists try to break through to defend him, but they are pushed back. Marcus Brutus, a leading conspirator and former Pompeian, stabs Caesar in the groin amid the frenzy. A truly humiliating blow.
Damn.
After inflicting 23 stab wounds, the crowd of assassins stand back and admire their work. The would-be king, the tyrant, is dead. In a twist of irony, Caesar would bleed out beneath a statue of his former Civil War rival, Pompey the Great. A statue he had refused to tear down.
Damn.
Caesar.
Hey, that's a man of honor, though. He refused to take down the statue of his enemy. That's honorable right there.
Should have seen it coming. According to classical sources, a month before his demise in February of 44 BC, he visited a fortune teller by the name of Spurinna.
Oh,
He
shit.
brought to her an animal to be sacrificed. And it is said that on the altar she could not find its heart in its chest cavity.
What?
Seeing this as a bad omen, she warned Caesar his life was in danger. The next day, when he returned again with a different sacrifice, she was unable to find part of its liver. From the entrails of the animal, she divined that Caesar would come to great harm on the Ides of March, otherwise known as the 15th, the midpoint of the month. But that wasn't all. The Roman historian Plutarch tells us that on the day before the 15th, Caesar and a fellow senator began discussing the best way to die. To which Caesar responded, quote, "A death which is unexpected." Ominously, later that evening, when he and his wife Calpurnia were asleep, the windows and doors of their bedchamber flew open simultaneously, rousing Caesar from his slumber. His wife was yet asleep, yet she tossed and turned, muttering something under her breath. The next morning, upon waking up, she begged.
Alright, bro. This is too many signs. This is way too many signs. I would already be freaked out at the goat. And then the goat again? And now your window's opening randomly and your girl is muttering random shit?
Caesar not to attend the Senate meeting, for she had dreamt their house had collapsed and seen visions of her holding Caesar's bloodied, lifeless corpse. Caesar was by Roman
You know what's crazy? I haven't dreamt in a while. I deadass can't remember the last time I had a dream.
standards not particularly superstitious, but the mounting signs were enough to put even him at unease. To be sure, he summoned his own seers and had them conduct sacrificial rituals. all of them yielded bad omens. That was enough for him to postpone the Senate meeting, resolving not to attend. So why in the end did he end up going? Well, his old friend, Decimus Brutus, convinced him on the morning of the Senate meeting to ignore the omens and attend anyway. He appealed,
damn, bro, he wanted that Caesar money bad,
to Caesar's ego. Would it not appear improper and above all ridiculous or cowardly if Caesar did not show his face at a session he summoned merely on the grounds of superstition? What would that sort of behaviour do to his reputation? So he went, and on his way to the Curia of Pompey, he was stopped by a man on the street. The man handed him a scroll and urged him to read it immediately, claiming it concerned him. Reports tell us that this scroll supposedly contained details of the plot against him. For one reason or another, Caesar did not read it, and walked directly into the lion's den. Caesar's death would lead to a power vacuum and civil war that...
I think Caesar did know he was gonna die, but I think it was the best thing to happen in that moment, which sounds crazy, but you know, that was just a fate that was meant for him, you know. And now we get to learn on his behalf, which is kind of sad to say, but like, even the people closest to you, even the people that you think that you're like your best friend, your right hand man, you can't trust them. You can't, especially when you're in those positions of power, when you hold that much power and influence. No one can be trusted.
Determined the fate of the Republic. Caesar's adoptive son, Octavian, and his former consul, Mark Antony, would form an alliance with one of Caesar's most trusted generals, Marcus Lepidus. Together they would hunt down the men that murdered Caesar and crush all who opposed their rule, leading ultimately to the fall of the Republic.
Oh, Lucas, I'm not gonna lie. Like, bro, you're sick. You're a fucking sick human.
And the rise of a hereditary monarchy under the Roman Empire. Octavian would become emperor, and he would not make his father's mistakes. Caesar pardoned many of his enemies, even promoted them and gave them honours. Where others would have destroyed every trace of Pompey, Caesar elected to keep his statues up as a show of grace. His mercy might have killed him, and it might mean that the last thing that Caesar ever saw while he was dying in a pool of his own blood was a statue of Pompey, staring down at him mockingly. Caesar treated his foes too kindly, and flaunted his power too brazenly, making him a man that people hated, not necessarily a man that they feared. In the words of the historian John Balston, if an authoritarian government was to be established successfully in the Republic's place, it must not be, like Caesar's, an inconsiderate, careless and frank authoritarianism. It must wear a Republican mask, however false.
Bro, you can't, like, yeah, like, maybe he wasn't, like, the best, how do you say, the best government official, but he seems like a good person to me, right? I don't know. I never met him. I don't know him, but to me, he sounds like he was a good person. So, damn, that video was crazy. Shout out Imperial.